Welcome to the seventh episode of Untimely Conversations, and it's a pleasure to sit down again with Yasuhiko Kimura. We're recording this shortly after the holiday break. So Yasuhiko, how were your holidays?
So, as I communicated to you in the past, we were invited to this Christmas party, which got canceled. So Mira and I decided to just enjoy ourselves, just two of us. And she made amazing, she's an amazing cook, but she made really amazing food for Christmas Eve and Christmas night. And we opened the most expensive wine and just we enjoyed ourselves very much. And we played Monopoly. I always lose, but this time for some reason I won. And the New Year's Eve the same way. And winter time is for me is a time for reflection and meditation. So when I'm not with Mila, who is in downstairs, I just be with myself and didn't read books or anything. I just meditated and reflected upon my life and upon the world and so on and so forth. So it was a very meaningful way of wasting my life doing really nothing.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So I have to plead guilty to that as well. I sort of meaningfully wasted a lot of time for about a couple of weeks as well. Annalise went to Alberta for about a week, so I was here by myself for a week, and we were together for a week. But I didn't really do much of anything at all, and it was really very enjoyable.
Yes.
One of the things that's kind of interesting is I really enjoyed that for about 2 weeks, and then after about 2 weeks have elapsed, I start asking myself if I'm not using my time properly. So I have sort of an upper limit of about 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, and in a way, Western culture, which includes Japanese, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, and Japanese, Chinese culture. We are into working. And if you're not working, we feel like we're not doing things, living our lives in a meaningful way. Maybe there's something wrong about that.
Yeah.
You get up every morning, a new day, and somehow the new day is filled with plans and schedules, and just follow the plan and schedules, and we miss an opportunity to enjoy the newness and surprise that may come with the newness. So there's nothing wrong with being productive, but this mechanical way of living, there's something that is not in accordance with nature. So this was a time for me to relax, and we want to incorporate that, concentration, decentration rhythm, not just when we sleep, but we need to have a moment of relaxation, doing nothing, and just be. Huh? That may be something that we have forgotten living in this world. In your case, many people's case, you need to go to the office and you can't be late. So it is a lot of pressure. Every day your body physical condition is different. You may need to sleep another 1 hour to feel perfect, but you have to get up anyway, and so on and so forth. So maybe in the new civilization that we will have, we may have a little more spontaneity. It's very important.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I think the perception of how fast I'm going varies with what I'm doing as well. So the sort of 100-mile-an-hour rat race type of lifestyle,
yes,
very often I perceive it when I'm engaged in activities that I'm not necessarily fully enjoying or feeling the necessity or the meaning of doing.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing something that I really enjoy or that I feel that I feel is very meaningful to myself, I can almost be going twice as fast, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like everything's going at a leisurely pace, and I can stop to enjoy the flower, so to speak.
Yes.
So sometimes sometimes I think maybe the sort of the Western work schedule, it feels that way because people have to do so many things that they don't really enjoy doing. So, you know, you have to get up early, drive to work. It's a commute, which is an hour both ways kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe that just adds to the perception of just sort of hectic.
Yes. It is a glorified form of slave labor
Yeah.
because you do not have the control over time, for example. You must be there at 9 o'clock. And you know, you work from 9 to 5, whatever. And your lunch is, you know, 12 to 1, whatever. And your body may not needing to eat anything at that time.
Right.
So yeah, you know, in Chinese and Japanese, nature, the term for nature is shizen, which means spontaneity, and the spontaneity is the essence of nature.
Yes.
Yeah, it is in a way that it is a design of nature for it to be spontaneous. And that spontaneity has been taken away from human life.
That's true. Everything's very rigid and structured and beginning at a very young age now.
Yes. Yeah. You know, we have a joke by this, my friend from England, you know, the aristocratic families in the past anyway, or even now, I don't know. So they get married and husband and wife, they sleep in different rooms. Now, when they want to make love, you have to make an appointment.
I can believe it. I can believe it. Well, that mentality seems to begin at a young age now, actually.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess it's been maybe 10, 15 years that since I started hearing about sort of these helicopter parents setting up play dates for their children, and everything's rigidly structured by the time they're 3 years old.
Yes.
And spontaneity is just, you know. So.
You know, we do have this automation of many things. You know, that is actually a progress. Many things are automated. It is great. But it should not create automatons, humans as automatons. Actually, automatization need to free humans from being automatons and become more spontaneous. But it hasn't happened yet.
Yes. I saw a joke on the internet a couple of weeks ago, actually, where AI was supposed to, you know, free humans to pursue their artistic ambitions. And the emergence of AI has actually freed computers to pursue artistic ambitions and left humans in their menial jobs.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It is very funny. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think maybe that's why we feel the need for a break. Maybe it's just have a couple of weeks of just total spontaneity, not feeling like there's anything necessarily that needs to be done, because that's the way it is for most of the year.
Yes. So doing and being becoming, there need to be a balance.
So how do you how is it that one perceives that one is out of balance? How does it show up, do you think?
Well, I think breathing is an excellent metaphor. You know, you breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in is like a concentration. And breathing out is a decentration. And life has this rhythm. And if we maintain this rhythm, we are balanced. It seems to me our life is structured in such a way that we are breathing in much more than just breathing out. So
Yes.
there is a, I'm not saying, you need to have exact amount of time allocated to it, but somehow the breathing in this concentration, focusing time is just too imbalanced with this decentration and relaxing time, or state of being in which you're relaxed and state of being in which you're focused. Those two states need to have equal, amount. Time, maybe you may be focused more, but in terms of the level of energy that is focused also need to be released.
Yeah, that really sounds right to me, especially in the context of the last couple of years of the pandemic, where people have sort of they've taken on the situation and they have to hold that tension sort of. And there's been a lot of people that have just been really holding on to a lot of tension over the past couple of years. It does begin to look like a process where there's no exhalation.
Yeah. One of the ways to look at stress is exactly that, imbalance of inhalation and exhalation. People are too inhaled.
Yeah.
Not releasing. And actually people, there are people who cannot really exhale fully or inhale fully. It's like it's always you're holding some tension and air inside of you. And when you hold air inside of you too long, it becomes contaminated. And like fear is that, when you're afraid. So emotionally, through fear mongering, people are controlled to become stressed out by keeping the breath inside too long, out of balance with exhalation. Yeah, so the tyranny controls you even through your physical movement.
Yeah, that's an interesting metaphor. The process of breathing. I like that actually.
Yeah,
A lot of
that's
people
why
are.
in a way, when you learn to meditate in the Eastern way of meditation, what is called vipassana meditation, the first thing you do is actually watch your breathing. There is a system of meditation that has 112 method of meditation, that's a tiny book. And the first one is that, exactly, you watch breathing. So it is not trying to breathe in or in out, just start to watch it. And you begin to see, initially anyway, you begin to see there is imbalance and also tension. So once you become aware of this, you naturally, spontaneously begin to release the tension and your breathing become normal. And that rhythm actually permeates throughout the universe. Your mind, mentation, and meditation. Mentation is focusing.
Right.
Meditation is releasing. Depending on how you define meditation, but that's one way of looking at this. Meditation, thinking, is actually inhalation. You need to focus to think. Meditation is the Eastern way of looking at meditation, Zen. It is not the focusing. And there are meditation, original term, dhyana, actually meant something like a concentration. So it is important. But you see, people who are not able to release the tension are not able to really focus either. Focusing and then defocusing come together, and ability to focus is proportional to your ability to actually defocus. And so, look, as a result, people who are stressed and imbalanced and too much inhalation become unable to focus. over focusing makes people become unable to focus. So this is extremely important. It is a health, yes. This is a health. To heal is to become whole, and the whole includes both inhalation and exhalation. So the balance is so important. That's why I titled my translation of Lao Tzu, the Book of Balance. That is what Taoism teach, and many other things, but it's essentially Tao teaches this balanced way of living. In is a release, yang is the concentration, decentration, concentration, decentration. This rhythm. And this is actually a spontaneous movement of nature. The more we can actually incorporate this spontaneous movement of nature into our culture and into our lifestyle, we will be healthier, less stressed, and we can be more productive.
Yes, you know, what strikes me listening to you is that mentation, as opposed to meditation, to parallel the inhalation and the exhalation.
Yeah.
It seems to me that this culture is very mental, and so it will try to exhale using the instrumentality of inhalation. So it's like when people get stressed out, they turn to the process of mentation to sort of find a solution, maybe instead of just letting go and exhaling. So that's sort of interesting.
You know, in the pendulum moves. So when you move this way, the reaction increases. Yes. And then go this way. Yes. In the same way, when you inhale, in the invisible realm, the other movement is gaining momentum. Yes. So in one sense, meditation is definitely, you know, focusing, and meditation is releasing. But in a metaphysical dimension, meditation is going inward, and meditation is going outward.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you create. Thinking is to think is to create. Yes. So creation is actually manifesting in the external world. And so in on the physical level and the mental level, meditation, thinking is more in the concentration, and meditation is more decentration. On the spiritual level, movement is opposite, or level of pure consciousness. You are meditating, you are actually going in.
I see what you mean. Okay, I think.
And when you are meditating, you are actually creating, going out. So in and out movement, depending on the dimension of reality, it is reversed. And so people who are not able to have this balance, they can't concentrate, and they can't decentrate, and then they can't go within, and they can't go without. Their ability to do this get limited. So like a physical is a mirror image of a spiritual. So what is the negative in the picture? Now they don't have that. In the past, when you and I were growing up, we had a camera. So there's a negative photos and positive photos, and we see positive and negative. So the reality at the level of spirit is like a negative from our perspective. But from that perspective, this is positive, this is negative.
Okay, yeah.
It's very interesting. So this, balance has different dimensions or different realms or different levels. And but in any case, this in and out movement, concentration, decentration, going within, going without dimensions, essential. We are talking about meditation a few times ago. It's almost like when you are meditating, you are relaxing. At the same time, your awareness goes within all the way to the point, the origin of awareness. And we are saying point is not the physical, corporeal. It is something transcendental. Once we get to the point, that point becomes infinite. So the ultimate of infinitesimal, which does not exist in a corporeal reality, and ultimate in indefiniteness of all the way, actually meet, at the point you meet. And so you expands, infinite expands, and the minute point meet as infinity and eternity. So that is a meditative process, and this is not really focused. It's very interesting. So in terms of actual practice, you are physically relaxed, and your breathing is natural. So in that sense, it is decentration. But at a deeper level of consciousness, or you can say spiritual dimension, awareness is going within, all the way to the point. What people call enlightenment is that moment when you actually get to the point, then you meet infinity at the same time.
Is that similar to saying that everything is consciousness, where the infinitesimal meets the infinite, you could say?
Yeah, you can say, yeah, everything is consciousness. You can say that, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So I hear that statement get used from time to time.
Yeah, but some people would call this superconscious, because let's see, our consciousness is, when we are in our consciousness, we are conscious of something always, and what we are conscious of is this corporeal reality usually. Yes. And so when we meditate and we go within, we actually go beyond the level of reality that is corporeal. And it is more ontologically primary, because it is closer to the source. So that's where the being and the consciousness meet.
Okay.
Actually, it is two names of the same thing. Yeah.
Being in consciousness.
Yeah.
You can say consciousness is something that is bigger than the individual.
Yeah.
And being is as the level of the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
It is beyond individual consciousness, but not in the sense that the subconsciousness is beyond the individual. It is, it's almost like this, if we look at the universe from the Yogacara perspective, everything is consciousness, but still the consciousness has a level of vibrations, you can say. And it goes from high to low to high to low. And when human beings came into existence, we created a new loop here, and it kind of it comes out of the ocean of subconscious, and it begins to become conscious of itself and surroundings. And development of human consciousness is more like, so how we begin to actually raise this consciousness to actually meet the super consciousness. So before human consciousness, before humans, there was the whole reality that is consciousness, and there was a creative process, involution, evolution, involution, evolution. In this process, a conscious being came into existence in the image of this, they call it image of God. And this learned to become more and more conscious. And eventually, it actually merges with what they call super conscious. And then, you become more conscious of the subconscious. So yeah, it is like that's one way of talking about this. It is.
How do we?
But Buddhists talked about this long time ago. It is really nothing new. Consciousness only school of Buddhism, Yogacara school, Yushiki school, spoke about this. There's a number of scriptures and treatises that school of thought brought into existence. And it is really based on the experience. I mean, it's really, that's how it is. So from that perspective, everything is consciousness. Or, yes, everything is consciousness. And that's another way of saying it. It is like a, as above, so below, as within, so without. Yeah.
How do we fit ego into this discussion? Because I find myself increasingly intrigued with sort of the process by which people sort of develop these images of themselves that they start to worship almost. Where does ego fit into that?
So human consciousness, since it came into existence, has been developing. And in the process, it has developed a language. And through that language development, we also became able to self-reflect and self-conscious. And we create this notion of I as a metaphor or analog of this physical existence in this physical universe. So you are aware of the body in this environment, and the metaphorically in the space of language, we develop this I as existing somewhere inside this body, moving around in this world. So ego is a linguistic construct.
It's just linguistic.
Which facilitate self-consciousness. You see, so the ego is an objectified self acting as the subject in the field of object, arising in the world of language. But it is a step toward real self-knowledge. because so when you say I, you can be actually aware, conscious, aware of this I. You can observe the I.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. You can observe the I, and the observer is not the ego.
Right.
Usually we are lost in the ego, but sometimes in the right moment, all of us have this experience of being able to observe. But being able to observe the ego in action, so it is not just an abstraction, because when you have, although it is a linguistic construct, it goes with this whole of reality, corporeal reality, and you become aware of this. And that awareness, and you say, who is this I who is becoming aware, who is aware of this, my ego? And that is the, question that, spiritual seekers ask. When you say, who am I? You're not trying to figure out the ego, which is a linguistic construct. But I, that is aware of this linguistic construct, that is ego. Ego is a linguistic, therefore social construct.
Right.
And in the process of developing this, ego also create personalities. And most people, they want to, have nice personalities and so on and so forth. But it is just a social construct.
So I have a question about that. My understanding of enlightenment, as a term that's often used, is that enlightenment is sort of the process which may happen after which one becomes aware of that constructed self, and the real self can see the constructed self. So I guess the question is, if a person can begin to see that constructed self, or starts to become aware of that, what is the difference between somebody that's becoming aware of that and somebody who becomes enlightened? There seems to be, there's a road between the two, but I'm not sure what the nature of the road.
First of all, I do not like this terminology, enlightenment, because so many people use this. I use it sometimes, but I'm using it less and less, because when you become aware of this self, when the self the real self that is aware of the consciousness, ego, become present to you, it is not really lightening, because it is more like goes beyond light and dark. Truly, you see, light is light in contrast to darkness. When light has no object, it is not light. Only when it has an object and reflect upon on that object, then there's a distinction between dark and light with different shades. And when that self come to be made present, the experience of it is more akin to waking up, where you are aware both of dark and light. And so this light and dark metaphor kind of disappears. So awakening is better terminology, number one. Second, when that awakening takes place, you really become at home in the universe. The self is alive. The universe is alive. And the I of the ego, you can see it is dead. It is not alive. And it becomes semi-alive because you infuse life into it.
Okay, I think I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so enlivened, you become the enlivened, the one that enlivens the ego, number one. Okay. And number two, there is an element of detachment from the world in which your I is involved.
Say that again.
You become, so this I lives in a certain world, egological world. And not just only because it is not just, a linguistic construct in the sense that because it exists in this live world, it involves emotions and feelings, everything. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And normal state of ego is the identification with itself and identification with the world in which it exists. And once this awakening takes place, that identification and attachment in a pure in its purity, you have totally disidentified and detached. But gradually in living life, the attachment and identification significantly diminish. And ego, instead of living egological life, begin to tune into the cosmological life so that it aligns itself from the higher self or the awakened self. And many things you used to do, you lose interest and you stop doing. So-called ego gratification, you lose interest. And so meaning of life for the ego becomes completely meaningless. And meaning of life becomes cosmological in that sense. So egological meaning of life disappears, and your meaning of life and the purpose of life becomes cosmological, because you're a cosmic being. Yourself belongs to the cosmos. Your ego belongs to society. And yes, so you're, in the most fundamental sense, you become an outsider. And the challenge is how you, being an outsider, how you get involved with that world where, of course, you are still in society. You are living in a culture. You're being with people. And you want to live meaningful life cosmologically with the people who are pursuing ecological meaning in their lives.
Right.
And the joy is to find people who are like you, who are living in a cosmological life, cosmic life. And joy is to meet people who are working on themselves to actually transcend this ecological life, to live a cosmological life.
Yes, I can imagine. I can't say that I know exactly what that means really, but I do experience joy in meeting people who aren't just I guess what you can call ecologically driven. They're sort of at least thinking for themselves and pursuing their own um, sort of innate interests in some way that you can call the outsider. I do really enjoy meeting people like that a lot.
Yeah, yes. And there are people like that.
So what about this? So if we move from the terminology of enlightenment toward the terminology of awakening, does that sort of create room for the possibility of a gradual awakening rather than sort of an instantaneous light comes on kind of a situation?
There, you see, as I was talking about this, how the consciousness comes into existence. So that awakening is more like you finally become at one with the super conscious. Yes. But you are still living in this corporeal reality. So this sudden enlightenment and gradual enlightenment, this dichotomy is in some way false, because it takes time to, the moment you connect to this, it doesn't take any time. It is truly timeless. It's just sudden, you can say. But to get that level, you definitely move gradually. Some people may move faster than others, but it takes time. 10 years old is not going to have that experience. Or a 60-year-old person who have lived very ecological life is not going to, once you change the orientation, have that enlightenment next day. So in the dimension of time, you can see it takes time. You need to mature in the right way. And even if you have that experience, in order to become integrated and center of gravity shifting from ecological to cosmological usually takes time.
Okay.
And that's why, in the ancient time, in Zen teachings, so disciple get enlightened, become awakened. The master will say, give yourself 20 more years before you begin to teach. 20, I'm just came up, just say arbitrary number. But look, in a New Age Western culture, you have a minor insight, and then you become a guru, and that is
right. Yeah, okay.
And start to write books and make money. It is like that whole culture is there. And I like the Eastern way. So you mature to have an experience, or imperience, I would say, imperience. you have an inner standing beyond understanding, and then mature in that experience.
Okay, so I think that kind of answers my question, which was sort of one can say that people may have a sort of shallow intellectual understanding of ego. They're beginning to see that, like, the ego from what you can say is the real self, maybe, or they're beginning to intellectually understand, but it takes a great deal of time to deepen that to be kind of a center of gravity where your being is coming from.
Yes.
And so that becomes the road really between what begins as an intellectual understanding and what you can say is awakening.
Yes. Yes.
So how do we what is the is there a recipe for making that part of your being? I mean, is
you want to observe and ask yourself every time you ask questions, who is asking this question?
Yeah.
Yeah, and oftentimes it is the ego that is asking the question. You see, there's this movement of awakening taking place within people. Yes, and ego want to somehow take over, and it asks the question, and how-to questions always come from the ego.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Thing is, but you see, I know through my own experience with you and most people in my program throughout the years, there's a genuine search. And before the awakening takes place, you become the question mark. Pure question mark. It's like it is like if you can become a question mark, that's a true achievement, because all the questions we ask, we use our words, and this somehow it is diluted or contaminated by our education, our culture, and our ego. Because deep down, the ego knows that your consciousness that is living through the ego. That's better way of saying. Your consciousness that is living through your ego knows that your awakening is its death.
Okay. Yeah.
It knows, but it doesn't know well enough to know that it is real rebirth.
I see.
And that consciousness will expand and merge into. So actually, it is better for it, but it does not know. So it will do everything possible to prevent you from becoming awakened, and a little bit of insight. Not you in person, but personally, but you have. It want to take over, and you see many people, and if that person is intelligent and well educated, can become a good author and teacher. Some of the greatest masters are not extremely, educated in terms of book reading, and not extremely eloquent. Like my Zen master, the very first one. So I was 17 and he was 78. He was ostracized from the entire Zen community.
Really?
Because he was enlightened, awakened fully. And anyway, he was not educated man. I think he had like I don't know what grade education he had. And he, oh, he is so humble. When a high school kid with, just reading all kinds of things, yes, say something, he said, wow, that's very interesting. I can use that in my lecture.
That's
It was very humbling experience. This man is saying something like that. I don't even know what I'm talking about myself. So it was like, wow, And I have seen him debating with a university professor, and this university professor completely got destroyed by this old man, because he is so completely not knowing, so to speak, and purely aware. He asked questions, and this guy couldn't answer.
Yeah,
That was amazing to bear witness to somebody. Yes, I'm so lucky to have met one of the most enlightened beings that I have encountered in my life since, as the first Zen master for myself at the age of 17.
How long did you study with him?
Well, let's see, 5 years. But you see, I actually studied with his disciples. He told me that he is old. He cannot be responsible to be my direct master. He can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do all those things that he need to do to be responsible for me. So he sent me to his number one disciple, and who was also amazingly amazing guy. So I studied with 3 of his disciples and him for 5 years. I went back and forth many places. The first one later became Pope, Zen Pope, because his lineage was one of those Pope lineage. But he quit after 1.5 years, which he never heard of before. Once he become the Buddhist, Zen Buddhist Pope, they will stay until the end of their lives. And he was actually younger than most people when he became the Pope, because he was kind of well-known man, having written books. So he is the first one I met in his temple before he became famous and Pope. And 1 week I spent with him, 24 hours a day. And he told me, now I gave you everything I know. I have not achieved the ultimate enlightenment myself. So now all that I know I gave you in 1 week. Now it is time for you to meet a real man, real enlightened person. And I met this man, 78 years old. And he sent me to his number one disciple back. So this second one. And then there's another man who was also his disciple. So I stayed in this another man's temple, and I went to the monastery / seminary of this number one disciple. And in between, I went back to this old Zen master many times, just to be with him, just listen to his talk and stuff like that, meditate with him. So 5 years of very intensive education. And I also had one professor of Buddhism coming to this other man's place to give me like a Buddhist scholarly education. Yeah. So those are so in terms of spiritual and Buddhist way, I had a very good education, and I'm very, very lucky. Yeah. But anyway, going back to this experience.
you mentioned questioning. You almost become
Yeah.
questioning, and I must say, working as a scientist professionally, that's something I can sort of relate to. I increasingly sort of feel like science gets taught as an epistemology, and it kind of misses the mark because the sort of the core essence or being of science, I think, must be kind of at least semi-related to that state of questioning that you mentioned. So can we say that science is getting sort of dominated by ego as well?
Thing is, the questions that the scientists ask is conditioned by the science that they already know,
Right.
and method that they have. And so scientific knowledge is partial knowledge. And scientific language, usually mathematics, so in your chemistry also has a kind of a mathematical formula. You see, nature is multilingual. And mathematical language can describe and explain certain element of reality, but it does not explain the entirety of reality. And scientific questions that scientists ask is conditioned by the science itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So people talk about evidence. You need actually. So you have a theory, and you need to have you have a hypothesis, and you have evidence to verify the theory hypothesis, which become a theory, and so on and so forth. But you see, evidence you look for.
Yes.
And your hypothesis kind of determines where to find the evidence.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with this. I'm telling you, this is science is one of the greatest achievement of humanity. I mean, this is brilliant, but it does not cover everything. And that was the so let's see, in the 18th century, so Newton is 17th century, and so science was kind of established in 17th century and into the 18th century, and two poets, William Blake and Goethe, were troubled by Newtonian physics because it limits human perception, cognition, and knowledge to a particular area only. And so they both, Goethe presented, alternative way of doing science, or actually additional way of doing science. They never denied the value of Newtonian science, but they denied that is the only way. And the human intelligence is so vast that it has dimensions that are not just limited to reason and logic.
Mm.
And there are different ways of knowing the universe. And that holistic way of knowing can have a department which we call science, and the language which is mathematical. But it is far greater. And they saw the danger of humans limiting themselves into that dimension. So they were not anti-science. They were definitely anti-scientism.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, so Yasuhiko, I thought maybe we'd shift gears a little bit and continue our discussion on forgiveness. Last time we met, we discussed the topic of forgiveness and sort of self-respect and letting things go, moving on with your life. And since that time, we've had a couple of additional discussions pertaining to the importance of having a justice system or a system that holds people who commit crimes to account. And clearly, I think we both acknowledge that as important. So how do we sort of reconcile the two? How do we reconcile the what we discussed last time on forgiveness, the importance of letting go and being in that place of self-respect, with the importance of having a system of formal justice?
So, as I said the last time, forgiveness is for your own sake. To forgive is an act of self-respect and self-responsibility. So things happen in your life and people do something really bad, and you are justifiably angry, but this anger or resentment, if you hold within yourself, it will contaminate your being and consciousness, and you are not free. And if you respect yourself, and if you want to live a life of happiness and joy, you must free yourself from this anger and resentment, no matter what happened in the past. So you forgive others and sometimes even yourself, so that you are free from your past and you are no longer a victim of what happened to you and in your life. So it is an act of self-responsibility. So forgive originally comes from forgive, F-O-R-E, give. So give before. What do you give before? So you give love before you receive it.
Mm.
And you can also say you give love for hatred. You give light for darkness. You give faith for fear. Somehow it is an alchemical, transformative act, spiritual act, to transform and transform negative to positive, and transcend the negative once and for all. So it is not to condone the act, but it is to convert negativity to positivity for you. So long as you are holding on to your anger and resentment, even if it is justifiable, you are somehow binding yourself to the same level of reality in which the perpetrator of negative action exists. So you transcend there. So it is an opportunity for you to really, so it is a spiritual act. Forgiveness is a spiritual act. It is not legal. It's not even moral. It's a spiritual act of freeing yourself and transcending from this karmic reaction that exists. Now, there have been 15,000 wars in the last 6,000 years. 15,000, 5,000, and most of which are revenge wars, and people take revenge. And as we said last time, originally justice meant revenge. People want revenge. We understand that. Yes, we truly understand that. So long as we are doing this, humanity will repeat the same karma over and over and over again. And so to forgive means or entails that you transcend this whole field of karmic reaction. It is a form of spiritual awakening. That's number one. And this is not to excuse or justify. Also, we need to understand 95% of humans are asleep. Psychological coma. And nearly 100% of crimes committed are committed in the state of psychoma. And that understanding helps.
For forgiveness.
Yes. Those people cannot help but do it. This is not excusing their action, I'm telling you, but you can understand.
Yeah.
These are people who are in a way possessed. They are not aware. They are not conscious. They are not awakened from that psychoma. So in a spiritual sense, not bigger sense, spiritual sense, they don't have responsibility. They cannot take responsibility. They are not in the state of consciousness in which they can be responsible. It's very important to know. I'm not talking about legal responsibility. I'm speaking from the very spiritual perspective. People who are asleep, their souls are basically asleep in the state of psychoma. Spiritually, they are unable to be responsible. That's another piece. But regardless of whether or not you actually have this awareness for yourself, you want to transcend this karmic reaction. It is a spiritual awakening, act of freedom and transcendence. You move into a higher realm, a level of consciousness and being. So we were just talking about enlightenment or awakening. Forgiveness, in the true sense of the word, is an act of awakening. So it is an occasion for your spiritual transformation.
Yeah, is it fair to say an act of liberation as well?
Exactly. So that's one thing. There was a man named Lysander Spooner. Do you know about him?
I know the name. I know that I've read. I think he was 20th century American. I don't remember. Oh, maybe he was earlier than that. Wasn't he involved with the American founding?
No, he was a 19th century free thinker, lawyer, and abolitionist.
Okay.
He was a contemporary of Ingersoll and Lincoln. But anyway, he wrote a number of interesting books. And he differentiated vice from crime.
Oh, yes. Vice is something that you only hurt yourself.
Exactly.
I
And
remember.
crime is an encroachment upon people's lives, other people's lives and property.
Yeah.
And vice is self-encroachment, so to speak. And he says jurisprudence, law applies only to the crimes.
Yeah, I think that's a very intelligent commentary, actually.
Yeah, and vice is its own self-punishment.
Yeah.
So now, somebody commit a crime and encroach upon your property or life. In this case, let's not talk about life, because if you you'll be dead. So steal something from you, or actually encroach upon the lives of your loved ones. Now, you're naturally angry, and sometimes criminal justice system doesn't work. And the person actually, the desire for revenge is unfulfilled. And we see some movies and TV dramas where some people just take upon themselves the act of revenge, and then they actually do the revenge. Yes, many actually novels. Now, forgiveness is on the part of this person. Now, he or she can continue to be angry, resentful, and a victim of this incident. And it is quite understandable that he or she is in the state. We can totally identify with how he or she feels. Injustice was done, and he or she feels revengeful and want retribution, revenge against the man or woman, most man, who committed this crime. So I'm saying forgiveness is independent of this man. You hold revengeful thought, the anger, and holding it is a vice. It is harming himself or herself.
Yeah.
And he or she may even feel guilty, not having been able to, save the loved one. So all kind of emotion will be there, but negative. Holding this is a vice because he or she is hurting himself or herself. Now, with the act of self-respect and with the understanding, the one who committed the crime is actually an asleep human being, you may actually decide to free yourself from this negativity, which serves nobody and which harms himself or herself.
And probably others as well, really.
Yes. And society has created justice system, jurisprudence, where the person who committed a crime get punished. Now, even if he or she is punished, this person still may remain angry.
Right.
Probably the person get executed, he will feel release, vindication, but it does not really fundamentally change the person. So that's the difference. So there's a system of jurisprudence through which retribution is made. Now there are people like Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong. I think Stalin killed like 30 million people.
Something like that, yeah.
Mao Zedong maybe more.
I heard 60 million at one point. Yeah.
Now, what kind of retribution can you come up with those people?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's just the most, yeah.
And all those people they killed have families. What are they going to do? So they need to work on, themselves. Sounds very cool, but if they want to transcend their own suffering, because Stalin is already dead, Hitler is already dead, and they killed your, family members. What are you going to do if you want to actually live your life? In happiness? Then forgiveness is the path. And
that's true.
Real deep understanding into human nature.
Yeah, I was going to add that you mentioned a few minutes ago that one of the things that makes forgiveness easier is to realize that a lot of people are basically in a state of psychoma, is what you called it, and I agree with that. One of the interesting things that I would add, and maybe it does make it easier to forgive, is that the same sort of applies to the people who are charged with meting out justice within our justice system.
Yes.
I mean, the lawyers and the judges, and those aren't necessarily people who are not in a psychoma. I mean, a lot of them, I would say it's fair to say a lot of them are. So the system of justice itself is almost the same unconscious process that plays out in response to another unconscious process. It's all unconscious.
Yes.
And I mean, I think when you begin to see that, there really is no alternative but forgiveness, actually, because there's no place to go to get what you have in your mind.
Well said. Yes. In one of my essays, I proposed this: the preponderance of ethics or spirituality is inversely proportional to the preponderance of jurisprudence, which means
Really,
the more ethical or spiritual the people are, the less you need laws.
I think Thomas Jefferson said something similar as well.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure he did. Yes, yeah, he did actually. Yes. So solution is awakening people and establish the inner ethics. So spiritualization of humans and awakening of human souls are essential if we were to create a better society.
there a bigger challenge than that, actually?
It is a big challenge. Did you say bigger challenge or big challenge?
I was just asking, yeah, is there actually a bigger challenge than that?
Bigger challenge than that. I don't think there is any bigger challenge. Do you think there is any?
I don't think so.
Yeah. You know, you can hypnotize people in a group, but awakening only happens individually. So we are already in a disadvantage in terms of numbers.
Yeah, it's true. Rather significant disadvantage, I would
It's
say.
a significant disadvantage, you know. And another thing is this. We average normal people, they usually mind their own business.
Yes.
So, you know, you are interested in science, and especially organic chemistry, and you'll be very happy. You have a place where you can do your research and development, and have a nice girlfriend. Which you already have all of this, and then that's maybe pretty happy. If you have a sufficient amount of income, you don't care. And then you have friends, and you do no harm to those people. That's your life, and I'm the same way, and many of those people. And who goes into politics are not this kind of people.
Yeah, that's true.
And you see, our attention is on our own happiness and happiness of the people whom you love, and that is our life. And then those people who create problems for humanity, they spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in politics, thinking about this on an ongoing basis and doing things. But again, we are in disadvantage.
Yeah.
And they somehow, and they have money and power. Therefore, they're able to entice average people into actually be a servant or slave or a member. You can see that in the
status part of it too.
20 U.S. election, or just this year's Brazilian election. How much of this has been infiltrated into our government?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are normal people working for the government, but they don't have the power.
Right. Yeah. The enterprise of government itself is just a. We haven't figured out how to make a government that isn't corrupt yet, basically.
Look, when you go to school, normal intelligent people, they study and they get a good grade. The lazy, ambitious, dishonest people, they develop cunning, and they do cunning things. They somehow find a way to get the good grade without actually earning it, and they become so good at cunning they don't need to study. Yeah. Imagine your school and the teachers are controlled by cunning people. What's the point in studying anymore? You want to become more cunning, because they don't care whether or not you have the knowledge, so long as you get the good grade. And to good grade, you need to be cunning. So that's what's happening in a way in society. This is a kind of an analogy. The whole society is run by not intelligent, in the true sense of the word, educated people. It is run by not really intelligent in the sense of real intelligence, not truly educated in the sense of true education, but very cunning.
Yeah.
And they are running the show.
Yeah.
And they don't really care how intelligent or educated you are, so long as you have adopted their way and have status. Today, it will be very difficult for a genius to get PhD. I'm sorry, you're a PhD, but I'm talking about, you don't need to be a Albert Einstein. He didn't have a PhD when he wrote those papers. He got the PhD later on, yes? It's already happening there.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I think that might be correct. Yeah.
Yeah. 1905, he was working for the patent office. He didn't have PhD.
Okay.
So the original thinking is not appreciated. You need to be approved by peers, and peer approval may have nothing to do with the quality of your paper. Yeah. It is how you play politics well with your peers. I'm not denying that lots of genuine people. Please don't misunderstand me. But I'm just exaggerating the situation.
Yeah, no, it's true though. I mean, it's absolutely true. The peer review process. We actually talked about this a few episodes ago. The way it sort of gets co-opted, and in fact, from a broader perspective, what you're saying with the education system and the justice system, and we really do start to live in a world of form where the substance of human intelligence is absent, and you just get this performance. And it's interesting that the word form is in the word performance to me.
That's true.
Because it just looks
true.
Yeah. And like that sort of innate intelligence just looks increasingly absent. Especially when
yeah. So kind of wrapping up this, so you and I know there are people whose names are well known, who are committing crime against humanity right now.
Yes.
And if justice system works as it should, they should be sent to jail. However, the justice system is a part of the system that is corrupt.
Yeah.
So they continue to exist and do things and do harms to humanity. Now, someone who is spiritually awakened and has forgiven everyone, as symbolized by Jesus Christ on the cross, do not have anger or resentment against those criminals, but will do his or her best to make the justice system work so that their behavior will not continue or persist and stopped. So you can put Trudeau in his own place and stop him from doing any more harm to Canadian people. without having any anger toward him.
Right.
Because what he is doing must be stopped.
Agreed. Yeah.
And we must separate this in a sense that, you can do things without having any anger for somebody. And it is one element of warriorship. Being a happy warrior. You are a warrior, you have to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Of course, that kind of war rarely happens because most wars are basically racket. Both sides are wrong. But sometimes, people have to defend their families, their countries against unjust invasion, at which time he or she has to maybe shoot somebody and kill. Can we do that without having any emotional negative emotions against those people? It is possible if you have forgiven 100%. I'm not saying it is easy. I'm telling you, it is not easy. But it is possible. But once critical number of people are that way, the society will change.
Well, there's kind of a thought experiment that occurs to me, which is that if somebody does something really, really awful, and you're angry, let's say hypothetically that person who did something bad had an instant change of character, and they felt remorse, and they understood what they did was wrong. Are you still angry with them? I'm not sure. And so maybe the anger is not necessarily directed at the person, but it's directed at the sort of asleepness.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that if that's where the anger is going, then maybe what you're saying is entirely correct. That if that's what you're angry about, then it's a lot easier to sort of forgive the people.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm. But it may not be anger though, at that level of understanding.
Mm.
It is probably more like sadness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a complex emotion, maybe.
Yeah. So, although we are outnumbered, we don't need lots of people, proportionally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You see, one truth does not need any more truths to support itself. Lies need a network of lies to be able to sustain itself.
Yes, they do.
And move that into this one awakened person does not need others for his own awakening. So the group of people coming together who are all awakened, those who can stand alone, coming together, has so much more power than who are by nature collectivist. They need a lot of others. They need to conspire. They need to conspire to be able to do what they're doing. There's a tremendous conspiracy going on right there. Now it has become so obvious, but it is a conspiracy that has been going on for centuries. Yes. So we do need a creative minority, awakened creative minority coming together. We have forgiven everybody. To create more balance in the world. That kind of people will be always there. Problem is they took over.
Yeah.
You see.
A little bit
Too
too
many
easily.
of them. Yes.
Somehow it happened. It's very difficult to understand how that was able to happen, actually.
So here's the thing. I don't like to call this good and evil, but for the sake of argument, just use that word. Or good and evil, independently, purely good people, or probably that's like no matter what happens, this person will be good kind of thing. Okay. I don't know. Let's say 5% of humanity. Okay. And the evil people, who is just evil. There's nothing you can do about those people being evil. And there's the rest of the people that can go either way. Somehow they have evil people have taken over, and either this group of people join them or become enslaved by them, so that the society is moving in the direction that they will dominate. So what we need is awakened humans coming together and enroll more people, empower and enroll more people into this side, so that there is a balance. And we don't want to call us good and call them evil. That's a really bad way of characterizing it. I just use this word just to make the point. So that balance is necessary. We cannot eliminate them, and it is not even necessary to eliminate them. If we have this creative tension is what we need for the evolution of humanity.
Right.
But if they dominate, we will devolve. And if we dominate, we will devolve. We need to have the creative tension.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah.
So so-called evil people are necessary. But we cannot have the domination by them. So they are put in their own place. And once they are put on their own place and become the part of the creative tension, something miraculous will happen. Some form of tension will exist, but it will be different kind of tension.
That tension in itself. So yeah, it's almost like that tension in itself becomes the good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of an example of Lupasco's logic, I guess.
Whose logic?
Lupasco's.
Pascal. Yes. Yeah. So that's the my personal reaction to some of the people who expressed dissatisfaction from the last conversation with respect to revenge and retribution.
Yeah, that's well, I think that's a really comprehensive way of looking at it, actually. Yeah. Very, very comprehensively.
So as I said, justice is a balance. And revenge and retribution need to be let go. And will punish, stop action that create an imbalance and let the spirit of negation, spirit and the act of negation takes over.
We wouldn't have a justice system at all if it wasn't for the fact that people like this exist. So
yeah, that's true.
so.
Well, I think there are only two agreement we need to have. This is not my original, Richard Maybury, who was a great Austrian economist and investment consultant, said this. Two agreements. One is, do not encroach upon other people's life and property. We keep this. Second law is, do what you have agreed to do.
Yes.
If everybody can keep this, the society will be very functional. Two positive laws.
Very comprehensive laws again.
Yeah, I think so. And he says it is the distillation of common law that had been developed in England.
Yes, it is.
For centuries.
You can distill most of the whole rigmarole down to those two things.
Yes. Yes. So.
Okay. Well,
okay.
that seems like a good place to stop, I guess.
Yes. And
thanks very much for an interesting conversation, Yassi.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. And then let's have a great year.
Yes, indeed. That's I agree.
Let's make 2023 the best year of our lives.
Let's do that.
Just because we say so.